Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Mind the Moment. Thank you for joining us in our coffee house in the cloud, a place to get centered, to listen, and to come together around our shared humanity. Today is Friday, June 5th, the night of June's full moon, which is sometimes referred to as the strawberry moon in honor of strawberry picking season hitting its peak during this time. The name itself is attributed to the Algonquin tribes of North America, who honored all the full moons with names related to seasonal changes evident in nature. Other moons include the sturgeon moon, the wolf moon, and the harvest moon. So as you stand under this evening's moon and perhaps eat its attendant strawberries, I think it's a great time to take a seat in the feeling that all things are fleeting, making it all the more critical to ensure that we marshal every moment towards ensuring all beings are able to achieve their full dignity. I'm John Roberts from Harvard Pilgrim Health Care's mindfulness program, and here with me to share this moment is Tara Healey, founder and director of our program. Good morning, Tara. How are you today?
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining. And John, I'm doing okay.
Okay. So in just a moment, I'll hand it over to Tara to lead us in a 10-minute guided meditation, after which we'll dive into some Q&A, and then we'll wrap things up before 9 a.m. Now, if you haven't already seen it, at the bottom of your screen, there is an option to open up a chat box. At any time, please tap in any questions or comments you might have. We'd love to hear from you. Tara, is there anything you'd like to ask folks at home to comment on as we get started?
Yeah, I want to begin as we usually do, and I recognize there may be people on here who this is your first time joining, but mostly the coffee houses we open up with just saying, asking, how are you? So how are you doing physically, emotionally, just give us a few words to, as a way to check in this morning.
All right, so as you type, I just want folks to know that Tara and I are the only ones who will be able to see what you're typing. And so if we don't read your question or comment out loud, please know that we do read and appreciate them all. And before we close, I will also point you towards some other ways to get in touch with us as well. All right, so a few folks commenting here. Someone says they're feeling a little bit unsettled, isolated, sad, upset, confused about what to do next, hopeful. Somebody says the events of this week have been overwhelming. Certainly that is more than true. So, okay, Tara, I think that gives us a good range and a good starting point here. Now, I know that you're going to be forming the foundation of the practice you'll be leading us in today on compassion. I'm wondering if you would maybe start us off by giving us a definition of compassion in the context of the mindfulness tradition.
Yeah, sure. Happy to. Yeah, I really, as I was just thinking during the week about what to talk about this morning, there were so many things that were kind of coming and going in my mind. And then I landed on compassion, and it just felt like this is the right, and self-compassion, and that this is a good place for us to begin. I want to first provide a definition, and this is by Paul Gilbert, who's a psychotherapist and has been studying compassion for a long time. And there are lots of definitions out there, but I really love his. Compassion is a basic kindness with deep awareness of one's own suffering and of other living beings, coupled with a wish to relieve it. And that's often what distinguishes compassion from altruism or empathy. It is with the wish to relieve it, and it's more of a verb, actually. And really, it arises out of a willingness to come close to suffering, to our own and to another's. And when I first got into meditation practice, and I started really looking at the nature of my mind and how the thoughts that would arise and would pass, I realized that it wasn't just my mind that was doing this, it was everybody's mind. And even that alone started to really cultivate this feeling of compassion just for the human condition. And it's important to understand that a barrier to compassion is a strong tendency to be defended, indifferent, or withdrawn. I would also say to distract. And over the past 2 months and within the past several years and decades, we've seen horrific examples of injustice. And I think the question is, can we maintain a commitment to meet whatever arises and to do so with an attitude of receptivity, interest, kindness, and care? So in a way, what we're doing with this practice and with compassion practices is we're learning to be comfortable with discomfort. And at different points, that's been a theme that we've talked about. Mindfulness can help with that, and compassion practices within that especially can help with that. So I'm going to guide us in a self-compassion practice this morning. And there's so much more research about compassion in general, but specifically self-compassion can lower rates of depression, anxiety, stress. And also it's important to know that it's a skill that can be developed, cultivated, and practiced, much like learning an instrument. And that was actually an analogy that one of my teachers gave that I thought was really interesting. The other thing she has said always is that you don't have to actually feel what you're wishing for. You don't have to feel it. All you have to have is the intention to feel it at some point, the leaning into the desire to want that, but you don't have to actually feel it. So as I said, I'm going to lead us in a compassion practice this morning, and then we'll open it up for more Q&A and dialogue. And sometimes offering compassion for ourselves is challenging. So if anybody feels like that is going to be a challenge for you today, I would select something that's easy for you, and that could be a pet. It could be somebody who is very dear to you. But ultimately we're gonna start with ourselves. And so what I would say is, let's begin as we usually do. So settle into an easy seated posture. And with the compassion practices, you can be really easy with your posture. You want to have some degree of uprightness, but you want to have a spine that's straight but not stiff. So kind of a softness around the spine. And just settle into either seated or standing. And see if you can just surrender your weight into the surface. And noticing how things are for you. How is your body? Where is your mind? And the eyes can be open or closed. And if they are open, you want to gaze downward a bit. But just allow the receiving of sound in the room or outside of the room that you're in. And allowing sound to remain in the background and beginning to bring the attention into the body. And inclining the mind in a way that is gentle and easeful. And we're going to start with a gentle scan of the body and just simply noticing the areas that I mentioned, softening to the degree that you can, aware of what's there. So starting at the very top of the head and coming down over the ears, the back of the head, and bringing awareness to the face, softening the muscles of the face to the degree that you can. Sweeping attention down over the neck and shoulders, to the upper arms, elbows, forearms, and hands. And just this kind, receptive attention, softening to the degree that you can. Bringing awareness to the torso and to the front of the body and the back of the body. Softening and easing into this part of the body with your attention, just simply aware, perhaps noticing the heartbeat. Bringing awareness down over the hips and thighs, the knees, lower legs, and feet. Softening this region of the body, again, to the degree that you're able. And I'm going to start by offering some phrases, and this is very common in this practice. And again, we're just inclining our attention, our mind this way. And this is both a concentration practice and a compassion practice. So I'm going to offer 4 phrases, and at any time you can change these. But for this morning, so may I be peaceful and at ease. May I be peaceful and at ease. May my heart be soft and open. May my heart be soft and open. May I be safe and protected from inner and outer harm. May I be safe and protected from inner and outer harm. May my body be healthy and strong. May my body be healthy and strong. And I'll go through that again. So may I be peaceful and at ease. May I be peaceful and at ease. May my heart be soft and open. May my heart be soft and open. May I be safe and protected from inner and outer harm. May I be safe and protected from inner and outer harm. And may my body be healthy and strong. May my body be healthy and strong. And just settling in, settling back. And just for a moment or so, connecting with the breath. Just aware of the body, breathing in and breathing out, providing nurturance and life with each inhale and each exhale. And when you feel ready, allowing the eyes to open if they were closed, and re-engaging. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Tara. So this is I had but the first question I wanted to ask you, it was going to be this. For those of us who are lucky enough to be quite comfortable in our lives, there might be a kind of a glimmer of hesitation when doing this sort of practice of feeling like, isn't offering compassion to myself self-indulgent? But then somebody in the chat box beat me to this question, I think put it in a much more heartfelt way. So let me read
Yeah.
that. I'm struggling with having personal issues, which are more trivial than what others are dealing with. I feel guilty for having those issues. So I'm wondering if maybe you can take those sort of two questions combined
Yeah.
and address them.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the concerns of our lives, like the daily concerns of our lives, with a backdrop of what we're experiencing, can absolutely make some of what we might be experiencing feel really trivial. And yet these things do not, we don't have to discount those. It all, and one of the things that I've always loved about this practice and how many of my teachers have taught is that there's room for all of it. And I think that it's a wisdom practice which allows you to bring sort of a certain lens of understanding of how to engage with these various things, from the very, very large, global societal concerns that we have to some of the, personal things that might right now for some people feel like they're trivial. They still need to be addressed and managed and worked. And because they are producing some, kind of distress or emotion, to not address them. As I said last week, what Amishi Jha said is that, she's a neuroscientist, is that they will continue to persist, that whatever we resist will persist in some way. And it's, there's room in the mind and the heart to work with everything that arises. And I think it's skillful and wise to recognize some of the things we think are trivial or not important in a larger context. I mean, that's a skillful thing to do. The other thing, John, kind of getting at your point a little bit, I think this might get at that, is that, isn't this somewhat trivial that I'm spending time on, my own ability to be compassionate with myself, and that, but that actually helps us to be compassionate with others, and that there is a strong tendency to, and I said this earlier, toward, when we're not really addressing some of the pain that's in the world and our own response to that pain, bringing a level of self-compassion to that it's very difficult to really extend it outwards if we're not also understanding how to do it with ourselves. So I feel like the ability to do it with ourselves really extends to the entire world. And the more that we understand the nature of our own mind, the more we're actually understanding the nature of everybody's mind. The content and the stories are different, vastly different. But this ability to be self-compassionate will extend beyond yourself.
What I really love about this practice, and you were gesturing towards this earlier as well, is that there aren't set phrases that one has to say. And as you know, when you sit with different teachers, they will have different phrases. And I think it almost over time it took me a while to connect to this practice until I understood that over time I could set my own phrases, the ones that sort of rang true to me in my mind, and it helped me sort of plug into it a little more. So that's been helpful for.
Yeah, I agree. So create your own phrases, and most importantly, it's fine to be skeptical about this practice. I think that The science, again, is helping legitimize it. And please know you don't have to feel it. You just have to have the inclination at some point to feel it.
So I want to make sure that folks feel invited to ask Tara questions, but while we see if any folks do have questions, one more thing for me that I think, often the terms compassion and empathy get used interchangeably, and a lot of folks in the mindfulness community have done really great work to illustrate the subtle and sometimes not so subtle differences between these two terms. So I'm wondering if you can just talk a bit about how compassion and empathy might be considered alike, but also different from one another.
Yeah, so I would define empathy. It's really the ability to take perspective and feel the emotions of another person. I mean, to the degree that you can. You aren't that other person, so you can't get it completely right. But it's really the ability to take the perspective and feel the emotions of another. What compassion does and how they're similar is that it brings in that first element of empathy. But the distinguishing factor is it's more of a verb. It's a real desire to take an action to alleviate that particular suffering. So it is taking it just a step farther. And empathy is tricky because it can, it can go overboard. I mean, this is like almost any emotion, where then you become sort of paralyzed by the emotion. And again, this is where mindfulness practices and compassion practices really support us with a kind of strength to understand and to see what's happening and to work skillfully with the various emotions that are arising, so we're not overtaken by them, and with compassion so that we can take an action to help alleviate that suffering.
So I know we only had so much time that you could do the meditation in this morning, but there's this other sort of segment to compassion, this sort of compassion practice where you are extending those feelings towards others. And so I wanted to sort of follow up on the first question I asked you, which is, what would you say to somebody who asks, isn't offering compassion to myself or others, even in the privacy of my own mind, in the privacy of my own living room or wherever, isn't that far less meaningful than going out and actually offering it in a more active way?
Well, I think you're setting the stage for doing that by cultivating and leaning into those qualities in the mind. So it's not an either or, is what I would say. It's really both. So it is whatever we incline the mind toward, we strengthen. We know this from neuroscience and the research that is going into meditation and compassion. Whatever we incline our mind towards, we are strengthening. So if we are in the privacy of our home, offering compassion to ourselves, and there's ourselves to a loved one, to a person who's neutral, to a difficult person. So there's different stages of doing that. You are setting the stage because this is how you're inclining the mind to be able to then take action. And the action is informed by wisdom, so that it's, we're taking an action that aligns with our deepest values for who we want to be in the world and how we want to engage. So it's, I would say you're setting the stage for that work at home, just like our practice, just like our mindfulness practice, using breath to kind of gain some steadiness, which then helps us observe and watch and learn about the content of our minds and our habit patterns and the strength of our habit patterns.
It almost feels like maybe like you're sort of warming up, in your home before you actually go out there and run the race of compassion, in the world.
Yeah. It's a practice. Again, like it's literally a practice, and we can cultivate it. All you need is the desire to.
So, Tara, I wanted to mention something that actually felt significant to me this week. Now, this news is already actually a few days old, but fortunately, good news rarely goes bad, even if it's left out a little bit.
Yeah.
So you probably heard about this as well. Here in Boston on Tuesday evening, some of the peaceful protesters who had gathered outside of police department headquarters began to chant for the officers who were guarding the building to take a knee in solidarity with the protesters. And then the police officers actually did it.
Yeah.
Now, this is far from a solution to a problem or any sort of conclusive act, but it felt to me like a first step towards building a bridge towards understanding. If not so much even laying the first stone, then at least scouting out the site where the building might actually begin.
Right.
And I was thinking about how some mindfulness teachers, suggest that different physical postures can put us into different mindsets. John Kabat-Zinn, in one of his books, talks about lying on the floor and how that might aid in breaking up our habitual neurological patterning, thereby allowing us to better clear our minds. And so this physicality of taking a knee, I think, could put us into a mindset that connotes humility and the willingness to listen, be it to our own inner wisdom or to the wisdom of others. So we have a couple minutes left, and I was actually hoping that maybe you would briefly sort of extend the compassion practice you did a moment ago, maybe helping us send that feeling out to others a little bit, maybe just one round or so.
Yes, absolutely. Happy to do that. So, So let's go ahead and, just get in a comfortable posture. And may all beings everywhere be peaceful and at ease. May their hearts be soft and open. May they be safe and protected. And their bodies healthy and strong. So may all beings everywhere be peaceful and at ease. May their heart be soft and open. May they be safe and protected, and their bodies healthy and strong. And may the merit of our practice this morning be for the benefit of all beings everywhere. And when you feel ready, allowing the eyes to open.
All right, thank you for that. So let me just start closing us out here by pointing out that next week, next Tuesday and Wednesday, we are very excited that Tara will be leading our very first free public and virtual workshop introducing the basic principles and practices of mindfulness. Tara, do you want to say just a word or two about what you'll be covering in this workshop?
Yeah, so it's an intro workshop, and the idea is that I want to spend about a half hour taking you through a slide deck, talking about mindfulness, talking about meditation, sharing some of the science and the benefits, kind of, like a broad overview, and save the last 30 minutes to include practice, but also just, informal Q&A, just a real opportunity to, chat with one another and learn together. So, and the other thing I want to say is I love how we titled this because, for many of you, some of you have had very long practices, others are new, some have had long practices, but they've lapsed. And beginner's mind is such an important piece in this practice that it's, and as you learn about mindfulness, say 5 years ago, and if you're regularly practicing, it's going to mean something very different 5 years later. It's like this onion that has so many layers to it. And so everybody's welcome. And I would even encourage coming to both.
Yes, well, so to that point, we'll be offering this workshop twice. Tuesday, June 9th, 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern, and Wednesday, June 10th, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Eastern. And while Tara will be presenting basically the same material at each workshop, it will be driven a lot, as she says, by folks asking questions. And so, you might get a lot out of attending both. No registration is required. Everyone is welcome to attend. So please do tell your friends, family, colleagues, anyone else you can think of. The links to attend can be found at harvardpilgrim.org/livingwellatHome. While you're there, please do check out the other free public and virtual workshops that we're offering. For our own part, we are back with you every Tuesday and Friday at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. You can find the links to these sessions and other resources at our main site at harvardpilgrim.org/mindfulness. Please do drop us a line at askmtm@harvardpilgrim.org or leave a comment on our Facebook page. Let us know what's new in your world. Do you have any questions for our experts? You can also leave a voicemail at my desk number, which is 617-509-7047. You can rewatch this session, of course, and older sessions on our YouTube page and find guided meditations on our SoundCloud page. So Tara, thank you, as always, for leading us here. Can I ask you just to leave folks with one resource that you think they might find particularly useful at this time as they continue to grow their practice?
Somebody who's really done a lot of work in this field is Kristen Neff, Neff. You could Google her. She has a website. Chris Germer is local to Boston, so he's also wonderful. So I could leave more. Emma Seppala, also wonderful. Let me think. I think the Center for Mindfulness and Compassion, I think that's in California, Steve Hickman. Anyway, there's lots of research out there, and so I think
we'll post this on our Facebook page so folks can follow up with those. Excellent.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Tara. Thank you, everyone, for joining. We will see you soon. Have a momentous day.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.